What's up, y'all? Welcome to Youngblood Poetry. Today we're going to be talking about what makes or breaks a poem. So without further ado, let's get started. All right, so one of the things that I do a lot that often impairs the quality of my poetry is over-explaining. A lot of times I will try to get a certain message across and I won't trust my readers to be smart enough to get what I'm trying to convey. And in the process of doing so, I harp on the exact same topic or exact same image, shoving it too much in their face. And a lot of times I'll have somebody read what I'm writing and they're like, I get it, I get it, I get it. What you're adding isn't very necessary. You should take some of that out. This line alone conveys what you're trying to say. So yeah, the very first thing you gotta learn not to over explain and trust your readers, right? The next thing is it's a bit controversial, but it's based on how modern poetry is as of now, right? And that is rhyming. Rhyming a lot of times is breaking your poems. It's worsening the ability of your poems getting published. A lot of literary journals and nowadays they consider rhyme to be outdated. Even though it's something that's happened throughout most of poetry's history, it's always been like a poem has to rhyme. But ever since like the 20th century, people have kind of turned away from that. And it's not that you can't rhyme anymore. It's just if you are to do it, it can't be basic. In other words, it can't be like cat, hat, bat, fat, or something like that. You have to be more creative in the rhymes you use. Um, so one way would be paying homage to people like Shakespeare who would rhyme. You can kind of style your sonnets in the way he did or something like that. So that's one option. Another is just to make your rhymes more complex. So instead of these basic rhymes like, again, cat, hat, bat, fat, you can instead have something like lyrical, miracle, satirical. You notice how you're not only rhyming the word, but the syllables in them? That can go a long way in making your poem look less Dr. Seussy, I guess you could say. No shade on Dr. Seuss, by the way. Love him. The next thing that's probably breaking your poem would be cliches. I cannot tell you enough. If you have cliches in your poem, take them out. Take them out. I've seen that ruin poems, and people are wondering, I don't know why it's not getting published. I think it's good. I think it's great. Yeah, well, there's no originality in that. You're kind of being lazy in the process of using cliches because they convey a message for you, except those are words that belong to somebody else. You know what I'm saying? So if you can avoid cliches, do so. You feel me? Well, okay, there is a time for a cliche. However, it needs to serve a particular purpose. In other words, you need to use it knowing full well that it is a cliche and maybe play with the cliche or use it in an ironic situation, subvert people's expectations with said cliche. You see what I'm saying? Okay, so the next thing that might be breaking your poem is unnecessary words or entire lines. A lot of times we'll tell ourselves, okay, I want to make a poem a page long. And you're writing the poem and you get it to a page long, but because you set a certain length limit to what you were writing, you added useless words, useless lines that don't really add anything to the poem. So sometimes you might want to look at a draft that you've written and really see what is necessary. Make it more concise. Other words, it's just fluff that you've added to it when you could be adding something more meaningful. If you're trying to write a poem that's a page long and you realize that after cutting out the fluff, it ends up being like three-fourths of a page, leave it that way because that's probably where it's supposed to be, right? Another thing that could be making or breaking your poem is inconsistent tense. In fact, this applies to all writing. If your tense is inconsistent, it makes your poetry look like it wasn't edited at all. It also makes you look like an amateur, pretty much. I mean, what I mean by tense is Say you're talking in past tense and then you suddenly start talking in present tense or vice versa, or you start talking in future tense. You look all over the place. Like I said, you just don't look like you're taking your writing seriously. So that's another thing. If you have inconsistent tense, it is probably breaking your poem. So one thing that can actually make your poem would be the use of double entendres. Now, the word entendre simply means meaning, right? So when we say double entendre, we mean double meaning. So it's any phrase or word that will carry two meanings to it depending on the context in which it is placed in. You can think of various examples of this in rap, in poetry included, and I feel like it goes a long way in adding extra elements to it and making it less one directional in the message you're trying to convey, right? Okay, and the last thing that can make or break your poem is the difference between being vague and being mysterious, right? A lot of people will consider these things to be the same thing, but they're not. One can definitely impair your poem, and another can add quality like no other, right? So, vagueness would be not expressing certain details that would be essential to the reader understanding what message you're trying to tell, right? And mystery would be withholding certain details, but they don't necessarily impair the reader's comprehension. Rather, it adds appeal to whatever they're reading. It draws them in more. It gets them more interested, right? So there's a difference, for example, between saying dad went somewhere for some reason and saying dad vanished without a word to his family. Both are essentially saying the same thing. One is vague, the first phrase I gave you, and the second is more mysterious, right? Uh, like I said, vagueness can really break your poem, but mystery can cause readers to be more attracted, more drawn in, and get invested in it so that they can find out the answer to that mystery. You feel me? So yeah, that's everything that can make or break your poem. If you like what you heard, if you enjoy videos like this, believe me, there's more coming soon. So like, subscribe, share, comment, click on the notification bell, and I'll catch you with another one. Deuces.